My job is just to put widgets together and to push buttons and to let you figure it all out on the back end. Many departments, even if they wouldn't say it that way, many departments, many technicians, they fall into this very mechanical, very technical expectation of the job, and they forget whether or not it's on your job description, whether or not you were trained, whether or not you were interviewed around that. It is a people business, and any people business is going to have customer service tied in. So that's the why.
Rising above the buzz of ultrasonic cleaners and the clanking of stainless steel are the ideas and voices that are changing an industry. You're listening to the Beyond Clean podcast, the central nexus for the people, processes, and products that are improving our sterile processing world. Each week, we speak with frontline technicians, CEOs, engineers, and entrepreneurs with a common goal: to help you fight dirty, every instrument, every time. Whether you're tuning in for education or inspiration, we're glad you did. Now turn on those washers and turn up the volume. It's time to go beyond clean.
All right, Clean Freaks, welcome back to another episode of Beyond Clean. We are launching a brand new season for you today, Tray Command, where we look at surgical tray logistics as they move through the sterilizer into storage and off into the operating room. All things tray logistics coming at you this season. I'm your host for the season, Bobby Parker, and joining me in studio as a guest co-host for this entire season is Angela Benson, sterile processing education specialist out at UW Health East Madison Hospital in Madison, Wisconsin. Angela, welcome to the show.
Ooh, thank you for having me. I am very excited to do this. I have really admired Beyond Clean's startup from the very beginning days, seeing them at conferences for HSPA, and very excited to continue on this journey with you guys.
Yeah, well, we've had a lot of great conversations with you, Angela, over the years. And so excited to hear your input into some of these episodes as we go through. I know people tire of hearing kind of the same Bobby stories in Louisville, Kentucky. And so it'll be fun and kind of refreshing having some fresh eyes and ears from other circles of the sterile processing world as we go throughout this season. So I'm excited to see where this goes. On this first episode for the season that we're calling, thank you for calling SPD, Long Live Customer Service, we're going to bring in none other than our friend Hank Balch to talk to us a little bit about his passion for customer service. If you've read much of Hank's writing, you'll know that that's a topic that's very near and dear to his heart and to mine as well. So this should be a great conversation. And with that, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back with Hank.
From the studios of Healthcare HQ, you're listening to Beyond Clean, the global voice of sterile processing.
And joining us now in studio is none other than Hank Balch, president and founder of Healthcare HQ, and for you OG Beyond Clean fans out there, the sorely missed co-host of the Beyond Clean podcast. Hank, it's been a minute since we've had you in studio here. Welcome back to the show.
Hey guys, y'all remember me? It has been a while, but I'm still here. Thanks for the invite, Bobby and Angela. Looking forward to this conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely. So Angela is co-hosting with us as guest co-host for the season. And so we figured what better way to get started on this season than to interview Hank Balch. So appreciate you being our guinea pig for the season. You know, I always say, the first guy through the wall loses the most teeth. So we'll see if we can get through this interview. Part of why we wanted to bring you on the show, Hank, and so much of your blog writing and our kind of co-hosting a podcast together is just based on our experiences. And we've had some some really interesting SPD experiences together. And as we're talking this season on tray logistics and, moving sterile supplies around the OR through case carts, through sterilizers, all of that, I really wanted to start on a strong cultural note about customer service, because that was a really big part of our story together. So I guess before we get started, as I'm kind of dancing around this topic, you want to color in some of the details for us about, why customer service has been such a big deal in sterile processing to you. Like what's made it special in your career around sterile processing customer service?
Yeah, it's a great place to start, Bobby. In one sense, it's where I feel strongest as a leader. I've shared in many of my blogs before. I'm not a very smart guy when it comes to the technical side of the industry. I made, B's and C's in science probably going through school and college, but I always loved the social studies part of whatever it was that I was learning. When you get into the people space, that's as a leader, but also as an individual, I felt the greatest ability to make the biggest impact in these departments. And ironically enough, as I've been around consulting now for the last 7 or 8 years, the people part of who we are as a department, the customer service part in particular, is just an easy part for people to miss. We focus so much on the credentials and the compliance piece of it, the tracking, the data piece of it, and we can get all that right. But if you miss this customer service piece, if you miss the people piece, the team dynamics, the fact that there's other people at the end of this very complex and very technical process, if you miss that piece, man, it can cause systemic issues that feed back into the technical piece, feed back into the process piece. It doesn't all stay in the soft skills world, but it's that soft skill piece that I think if you can rescue that, even as one of the first places to start in change, in just the change in management concept of these departments, even if you got technical problems, compliance problems, if you got dirty instrument problems, if you can start here at the customer service piece to rescue that, then you've built a foundation, I think, to fix everything else. But yeah, I think it's one of the easiest things to overlook, and it's one of the best places to start in a kind of transformation that we're all looking for in our departments.
For sure. And we've lived through some of those transformations. The one department I'm thinking of is the one we worked at together here in Louisville. I joined the team kind of well after that transformation was underway, but I know that you lived through some of that, and customer service being one of those initiatives that was kind of on the front end to start to build some of that trust together between departments. In some respects, it's no surprise that these two departments, sterile processing and the OR, seem to just perennially have a problem with one another and communicate pretty harshly with one another, because we've got huge expectations of each other, and we're not always so great at communicating those expectations to one another, meeting those expectations, dealing with one another well after those expectations haven't been met. And so, yeah, being the one to take ownership of, we're going to start to turn the tide on the trust piece and get some wins on that trust and professionalism piece to build a cultural foundation to start fixing some of those other systemic issues is a great first place to start. And that was a really big part of the success story there at Jewish Hospital. And I guess for listeners out there who are curious about that story, you can still find a little bit of a write-up about us in the Healthcare Purchasing News Department of the Year way back in, I believe it was the 2015 article, 2016?
Yeah, 2016, sure. I think.
2016 article, yeah, for Jewish Hospital, Louisville, Kentucky. Customer service, a huge part of that story. All right, well, we got to get to the interview, Hank, here, and start talking about, how you do some of that. I guess last definition before we start digging into how do you fix the customer service in your department is why customer service? I've talked to a couple of people outside of SPD, and they think it's weird that we call the OR our customer. So what do concepts of customer service in particular have to do with sterile processing and the operating room?
Yeah, I alluded earlier to we're in the business of people. We may not use customer as often as we use patient, but we all understand that patient is a person. Anytime you're dealing with another person, and there's a service that's being provided, that call them a customer, call them a client, call them a patient. There's a service aspect that is key in that scenario. You kind of just alluded to, Bobby, as well. His concept of customer service is not just the good things you do to make the customer feel happy. That's part of it. It's also all those other things you do when the customer or the patient or the person at the other end of the service is not happy. It's all wrapped up into one. And so there's good and there's bad, but it's confronting that with ownership, that it's not okay as a sterile processing department to just say, hey, your devices were clean. They got there on time. That's what my job is. My job is just to put widgets together and to push buttons and to let you figure it all out on the back end. Many departments, even if they wouldn't say it that way, many departments, many technicians, they fall into this very mechanical, very technical expectation of the job, and they forget whether or not it's on your job description, whether or not you were trained, whether or not you were interviewed around that. It is a people business, and any people business is going to have customer service tied in. So that's the why.
And really, they're our conduit to the patient. We're so far behind the scenes, really. They're the frontline caregivers. So we want to make sure that we're understanding who they are, because they're the ones ultimately right at the bedside as well, taking care of those patients that we often want to keep in mind as our goal. That's what we're there for and what we're doing, and kind of getting to know them as well. Gives it a chance that they're not just, those customers that are always right, so to speak.
Right. Yeah. Understanding that aspect of the customer, I think, is a critical piece to building a strong customer program, right? Because they're not thinking the way that the sterile processing technician or the sterile processing leader is thinking necessarily. Like, we've got the same patient at the other end. We got the same case that we're supporting. But we've got other priorities and expectations. We got other things going on that are maybe clouding our perception on this service in question, the sterile processing service. So yeah, Angela, you're absolutely right. The customer awareness piece on why may this nurse be frustrated right now? Why is this doctor complaining right now? Is it just today? Is it just this one case card? Is that why? Or perhaps there has been systemic issues and we have lost trust around. Or perhaps there is an interpersonal issue, like, which we may not have time to get into that, but we're going to, at a high level, there's customer service across your department and all the training concepts that come with that. At a smaller level, we know certain people rub us the wrong way. And yet, if those people are on our team, we got to manage it. If those people are our customers, we got to manage that as well. Even if we don't like them as a person and we don't like a lot of the ways they communicate, a lot of the things they do, you've got to manage the people in front of you, not the people that you wish were in front of you, not the way that you wish the OR would behave, all those kinds of things. You got to deal with the doctor, the nurse, the OR techs, the people that are there receiving your service. And that's what makes customer service way deeper and harder, more complex than just to be nice.
Yeah, Hank. So how do you go about ensuring your SPD team are customer service all-stars? How do you get them prepared to be able to offer that, positive attitude and kind of that, active listening?
Yeah, that's a huge question here, because even if the leader of the department wants this for their team, it's not only the manager's responsibility. And this is maybe the first call out here to answer your question. I do think leaders have a huge responsibility to model what customer service looks like. And so if you're a manager listening here and you're not excited about dealing with problems every day, not that we have to love it, but you're excited because you know how critical it is to handle customer service objections proactively, reactively, to do that in a way that's going to feed back trust into your department. If you're not doing that today as a supervisor or manager, start doing it immediately, right? Like, listen to this episode on a repeat, or go Google customer service techniques, whatever you got to do. So because of that, though, because we've got a lot of managers who maybe they were never mentored or shown the importance of customer service themselves, we see bad examples. We see managers who maybe they're two-faced. They sound like, syrup and molasses on the phone. They hang up and they're like, those blankety blanks. I can't believe they can't get there. And I'm just so tired of this, right? It's just like all of the venting, everything that comes out. Well, if you do that enough in front of your team, you're cultivating and you're giving permission for your entire team to feel that way. Now, not everybody is as good at masking on the phone how they really feel, or in the moment how they really feel. And so rather than trying to teach your team or expect them to mask, it's much better to model a true, consistent, hey, you are my customer. We've got bigger priorities on the line besides whatever this customer challenge is, whether it's customer service challenge is. The biggest priority is the patient on the other end. That is the ultimate customer. And that's what we're all here for, whether or not his process has gone perfectly, right? So I think it's a really important call out for managers and leaders to model this well, to own it well, consistently, to not be two-faced. Beyond that, though, a lot of things, even beyond customer service, I think start at the job interview. And even before the job interview, like one of the things that we did that I think is a practical takeaway is you need to be putting customer service expectations in your job description. Call it out. Clarify what kind of customer service you're looking for. I remember in the early days when we began hiring or even like looking through resumes, right? So like we got the job description out there. I'm looking at resumes, or I'm looking at resumes specifically for people with customer service experience. And there's a couple of companies out there that kind of rise to the top of the list, right? Like when you think customer service excellence, you don't necessarily, and no offense to anybody who's worked at this place, but you don't necessarily think, hey, Burger King, right? That exudes customer service excellence. They always treat me right at Burger King. I always feel special there. No, it doesn't come to the top of the list. Chick-fil-A, on the other hand, does. There's something special and systemic about the people that they hire and how they train. And so if I saw Chick-fil-A on the resume, immediately I'm like, okay, this is going in the pro customer service pile. At the very least, right? There's other things you're looking at, but at the very least, I'm like, okay, this person has got a little bit of a taste on what I'm trying to build there. Right. So it starts with the job description. It starts with how you're looking at the resumes. It definitely has a part to play in the interview process itself. And again, this is important for you as a leader doing the interviews. It's also, though, important for if you're doing peer interviews as well. And everybody on the team understands we need to be asking questions to dig into this person's ability to do customer service, their understanding of the importance of customer service, and get that out in the actual interview itself. And then finally, I'll say, if we have time, we can talk more through this as well, because this is a big part of it. Once you hire the person, there's a ton of training that goes in to the kind of customer service representative you want them to be in your department. What does that actually look like day to day in all the other responsibilities that you do?
Well, that is exactly where I want to go next, Hank.
Okay, great.
You talked a lot about kind of the cultural piece of customer service, modeling that well as a leader and hiring in that interview process for folks who are going to have kind of a spirit and an air around customer service, a belief that customer service is important, and trying to culturally build the bridge of that trust between these two departments. And that is well and good. Like it's very important. But sometimes like just having the nebulous kind of modeling and, general expression of expectations, that's going to work for some team members, but particularly if you're in a situation where customer service has not been the practice in the department for a long time, and maybe the relationship is really sour, there's also some particular expectations that go into customer service. So I'm curious if you could walk us through what are some of the things that you would implement today if you went into a department or you were leading a department that had a lot of pain points between these two departments. Like, what would you be going after? in particular?
Yeah. So, it's hard to say without being in a specific department. So I'll try to give you some broad examples of some things that are likely happening in many of these departments around the country. And then you can pick and apply whatever you want if it applies to you. The human temptation is if someone has done you wrong, it just kind of plants a seed and you let that thing grow, right? Especially if you're confronted again with that person or the team on a regular basis and they continue to wrong you, you plant all those seeds inside you and it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And so no matter the things that you may do incorrect, the temptation is to remember all the things they did that was rude to you or unhelpful to you or dangerous to you, right? The OR never takes their stuff off the stringers, or they always take their stuff off the stringers, or they're sending down sharps, right? Like all those things, horrible, dangerous. I can talk a whole interview on that, right? But if you never get to the point of saying, we cannot control what they do, we can control how we respond, you're never going to get to this piece. And so one of the first things, Bobby, that I always like to do is get my team together and say, hey, you have been wronged. I'm sure they have treated us like crap. I'm sure they've said bad things, mean things to you. I'm absolutely sure. All of that stuff has got to be packaged up, thrown over the bridge, and it goes down the stream, right? We cannot hold on to that every single day and use that to color everything else that we're trying to do today and tomorrow as we improve this process. So you got to let the old stuff die and go. And it's going to be hard for some people because if you've lived your whole life never letting go of anything and always holding on and treating everyone because you've been hurt and just hurting everyone or, treating everyone like trash, like this is a deeply personal thing that's may not just be inside work, but in work, the expectation is we're not going to hold everyone else's mistakes against them forever. That was yesterday. We got a new patient and we got a new project today. Two, though, you bring up a very good point on, I'll use this scenario, right? Like you hire someone, you're like, hey, go clean out the fridge in the break room. Or, hey, like we got some windows over there, on the side of the apartment. Can you go wash those windows? Well, you may have an assumption that someone has cleaned a fridge once in their life, or that someone has cleaned a window once in their life, that they've been shown by someone who knows how to do that well to actually do it. That's not always the case. And it's exactly true for this customer service case. You say, hey, give this person good customer service. What does that even look like? And it goes to small things like answering the phone. We put a ton of emphasis on what is it in this department, how do we want every single person to answer our phone? The importance of having it be standardized. So they don't, if they call at 11 o'clock in the morning versus 11 o'clock at night, it's not two stark differences of very professional and polite when the manager's here in the morning. Thanks for calling Sterile Processing. My name's Hank. How can I help you today? Versus if they call in the evening, it's like, there's loud music blaring in the background. They're like, yeah, what you want, kind of thing. Yeah. And like, we say that joking, but I'm serious. Like across the country today in departments all over the place, there is any number of crazy ways the phone is being answered. And that is not okay if we're wanting to build trust in the consistent professionalism of contacting our team. Because keep in mind, almost never is someone calling SPD from the OR and everything is going well. They're not calling to say, hey, guys, thanks for doing a great job. Maybe they are, but 99.9% of the time they're calling, something has gone wrong. They need something quickly. There's an issue that's got to be covered. And so you want that first example to them to be, I hear you, I'm listening to you, I'm professional, and you can trust that I'm going to do something with this. I've been talking a lot here, so I'm going to take a breath. That's one example, right, Bobby? Just answering the phone, standardized mechanism with a clear script. Everybody on the team is trained that way and modeled that way. And on the leadership side, we hold each other accountable for doing that. We don't ignore when Miss Shirley's like, you know what, everybody else does that, but I'm just going to be like, Miss Shirley, and that's it. We don't allow that because it's undermining everything else about the mission of building that holistic customer service presence to anyone who would call us.
And I have a fun little acronym that people can keep in mind as well that I just actually heard in some of our organizational development. Q-tip, quit taking it personally. A lot of that's what happens is we do naturally fall into taking things personally, people's, body language, their attitude, and then that kind of ruins your whole day, especially if you're the type of person like myself who kind of plays things over my head all day long with how they said that and what did that mean and things like that. So how about discussing a topic of service recovery, what that entails?
Yeah, so you're going to get it wrong. Newsflash. And, this is a commentary, maybe first to managers and leaders out there. Do not overpromise. Even if you buy into this customer service thing, I know like you're wanting to go out there and you want to communicate, hey, we're doing all this. We're going to fix it. But one of the easiest mistakes to make is say, this is never going to happen again. Now, that may be the target and the plan. And you come back to your team and say, we got to figure out a way that this never happens again. But do not promise that to your customers because you're opening yourself up to a loss of credibility there. You can say, we're going to do everything that we can, everything that we know to try to ensure that this never happens again. There's all kinds of different ways to communicate that, but you don't want to, because it's a human process. There's all kinds of complexity involved that we can't control sometimes. You don't want to set yourself up even higher so that when you do fail, because you will, you fall even further. The idea of service recovery, though, is understanding that because there will be balls that are dropped, there will be issues that you didn't realize that kind of sneak up on you sometimes. You got to prepare your team to know just as important as it is to be proactive to try to make sure that these issues don't happen, that you're building trust and whatever else. One of the most helpful ways to build trust is actually through this failure. If you leave an instrument out of a tray, or if there's a tray that goes missing, there's a case card that's not delivered on time, how you deal in that moment, I think many times has even a stronger reflection on the true values of your department and your team than if you're doing all this proactive stuff to get it right. And then you get it wrong and then you don't own it. And you're like, I don't know, maybe that was your fault. Like immediately there's blame going the OR ways. And we know, because there's a complex team, there's often plenty of blame to go around. In service recovery, you're not trying to assign the blame to other places. This is your opportunity to own the part of it that you can own, the part of it that you can control and fix. And through that ownership conversation and that messaging, then you're bringing that ownership back into your team and saying, hey guys, we're going to now fix what we did. And we're going to fix it in a way. And this is a concept that kind of comes out of the story about Chick-fil-A. They've got a concept called second mile service. It's where they don't only try to fix the problem, they try to go another mile, that second mile, to do even more than what the fix required, right? So it's like, hey, your order was late. I got your order now. Hope you're happy. It's like, sorry that was late. Oh no, they're going to give you like a little gift card, like for a free sandwich next time, or they're going to, give you kids little toys or something, right? Like they're going to go that extra mile. So that's the thing that we need to do in service recovery is be thinking, okay, I need to fix the problem right now. I need to own the issue. And then what can I do to go above and beyond to show that we took this serious and now we're implementing a standardized process to keep it from ever hopefully happening again.
Yeah, it's a really important piece. And often, with the customer, your OR is just looking looking to see that feedback that they're giving you is accomplishing something. Often it feels like they're just kind of like turning in reports of, please fix this SPD, this tray was wrong, this case cart was missing a thing, we asked for this, it was delivered like super late. They want something to be done with it. So part of that service recovery piece, to your point, is doing something about it and communicating that follow-up so that they know they're not just calling out into the dark, because eventually they'll stop giving you those reports of defects in trays. Like, this doesn't make a difference anyway. And that's not a place that you want to be. Like, you want that communication, you want those complaints, and you want to be able to follow up with them. Since we're on the topic of experiences at restaurants, I'll say that part of my favorite part of going to rallies or checkers, wherever you are in your part of the country, is just the humor of how bad the order can get messed up. It's like, what's the story going to be this time around? But yeah, if the problems that you experienced last time and you give that feedback are still there whenever you come back again the next time, it just builds this expectation. Like, this is the place that we go when we want to chuckle about how bad the service is. And that may just be the store near me. Please don't come after us, rallies. But yeah,
hey, dude, I threw Burger King under the bus, right? So now we've got two companies that are
that's right. We're
wanting us.
We're done for. Well, these interviews always go so fast. There's a lot more to be said on customer service and the importance of it and the cultural value. Hank, I want to give you the last word here. If you're a department that's done the hard work of training all of your employees to follow these expectations around delivery times and how you answer the phone, and you've got some good service recovery plans in place, how do you keep it going? Like, even after you as a leader are gone, how do you sustain kind of customer service success in the long run?
Yeah, great question, Bobby, and very important, right? Like, who just wants to put on all this hard work of hiring and training and everything else for it to last 2 years and then spiral back down into oblivion? So we don't want that to happen. We want this stuff to stick. I'd say the two primary angles I would take is you got to recognize it when it's happening in your department, when it's happening well, right? So if you see people who are just terrific on the phone, you got to recognize them in the moment. You got to recognize them in front of their peers. You got to put them up on a pedestal. You got to maybe let them do in-services around not just answering the phone, right? Like, that's the example that we use today, but there's answering the door. There's answering emails. Like, what's your email communication like? I've made some bad mistakes on how I've emailed in the past, and all of that ties back into this, right? But that recognition piece of the puzzle, it is core for getting this in your team's DNA. You can hire them, you can train them, but all of that still is kind of external. I think recognition is one way to internalize that, because everyone wants to feel like they've done a good job. And you can do beautiful trays. You can do it quickly. You can be that person that can do an open heart tray the best and the quickest in the entire department. And you get accolades for that. But if you're the person who everyone's like, oh man, the crap just hits the fan in the OR, send Johnny. We want Johnny and everyone else to know that we value his ability to do that customer service and that service recovery. And you do that through creative ways to recognize them. Two, though, it's critical on these department leaders to be communicating what's happening customer service wise to your customers in a fashion that's not in the moment. You got a dirty instrument, you got a dropped instrument. Okay, we're doing all the customer service recovery. Good. Okay, it's done. And they move on. But who's communicating and how are you communicating what you're doing in your hiring practices, what you're doing in your recognition, the success stories that you've had around customer service. And I think like department newsletters are a terrific way to do that. They're not the only way to do that. If you're having joint meetings with the operating room, if you're talking to maybe your administrators on a tour, in addition to highlighting the shiny new equipment, the new processes, the compliance, always keep this customer service story at the top of the list. Because the more that you message that outside of your department, outside of the stressful situations, the more trust, again, that's going to be built at this department is going that second mile beyond just getting the trays there and getting them clean. They're trying to build this team that cares about all people at the end of the service. And the only way to do that, I think, is to consistently message that in creative ways.
Yeah, well said. I really would like to have a full series on this customer service piece because we talked about interviewing, we talked about expectations. You just hit on recognition and how you do that well, how to put together a helpful newsletter that folks are going to read, and like how do you culturally distribute that so that your surgeons have it in their hands. Lots of questions still to answer from this interview, but hopefully that's whet the appetite and got us moving in the right direction. Great interview as always, Hank. Thanks for joining us on the kickoff to this season, and great to have you in the studio again.
All right. Good luck, y'all. Yeah, appreciate the invite, and keep fighting dirty.
That was Hank Balch, president and founder of Healthcare HQ and longtime co-host of Beyond Clean brand. Angela, really good interview from Hank. I feel like as we were working through all these customer service topics, we didn't have the time to dive into what it would really take for departments to make a difference on. But I know from my personal experience and Hank's as well, which is why we brought him in here, that like this cultural kind of transformational power of doing customer service well with your OR really does make a tangible difference in the department, both in how the employees feel, but then also, you know, the trust that you get to be able to work on some projects together with the OR, like really does make a big difference.
It really does. And, you know, the other suggestion too that you can make this possible is like a buddy system. You know, again, if you have a really strong person who you kind of want to be answering the phone or responding in a situation, bring someone along. They can kind of pick up on that, you know, that energy and be able to kind of in real life, you know, modeling that, how you want that response to be. And that definitely gives them some confidence too. And then that way you can kind of bring them into the conversation and they can kind of interact and learn from that. And then I think that just helps them feel a bit more confident the next time around. And then after that, you also have them maybe having that emboldenment to bring along some of their other coworkers too.
Yeah, it all starts with one. I like that. Well, if you are listening and wondering what in the world does this have to do with tray command and tray logistics, I'll say everything. We didn't get too deep into it in today's conversation around logistics, but particularly with delivery times, that's one of the big pain points for the OR, especially if your SPD is a long way away. And so there's a lot that you can do from a tray logistics perspective for customer service as well as to where we're going to store the really high value kind of quick grab things to make it easier on your OR, or maybe making a delivery promise. You know, are you going to be the next Jimmy John's with the freaky fast tray delivery and say, you know, we promised to have every tray to you that was sterile at the time you called to your door in 4 minutes or less. You know, I'm not sure what that looks like, but trying to figure out from a customer service perspective, how do we keep the OR well equipped and supplied with the trays that they need? All right, well, this has been a long one, but a really good one. That's going to do it for today's episode of Beyond Clean. On behalf of Angela, Hank, myself, and the rest of the team over here at Beyond Clean, until we talk to you again next time, keep fighting dirty.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Beyond Clean. As a reminder, you can help support us by subscribing to Beyond Clean on your favorite podcast app, or by downloading the smartphone app on iPhone or Android. Simply search for Beyond Clean in the App Store or Google Play. The best thing about downloading the smartphone app is that you can access bonus content for certain episodes and view episodes in certain categories, like articles on the go and vendor spotlights. Are you following us on LinkedIn or Facebook yet? If you are and you love an episode or post, then let your social network know about it. Like, comment, or share our posts along with your thoughts and keep the conversation going. If you have any topics or guests that you would like to recommend for a future episode, just send us an email to info@beyondclean.net. We look forward to hearing from you.